Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my February wrap-up, and like every February, this was a very slow reading month for me. I normally start off the year very well in January, and then my momentum just drops in February. So it's not surprising that I didn't read too many books, but I am excited about the ones that I did read, especially because one of them is very big. So starting off, the first book that I read this month was 400 Souls, edited by Ibram X. Kendi and Keisha Blaine. This is a nonfiction anthology book following the history of America from 1619 to 2019. It's pretty extensive. It covers a wide range of topics and time periods. A big chunk of the book does follow like the first 100 years of American history, but it does cover present day and more contemporary stuff as well, which I really enjoyed. But this is titled A Community History of African America, but that's what this is. This covers the African American history of America, and it covers a wide range of topics from political, social. It especially talks a lot about the different laws that made slavery and then Jim Crow South possible, and I think this is really informative and really well done. If you are going into an African American history class, you probably covered a lot of these topics, but there are a lot of less talked about topics as well, and it just gives you a lot of really interesting essays and poems and history stuff, which I think makes a great jumping off point if you want to look into specific things. This book might be pretty intimidating. It is fairly large, but I really enjoyed this. I thought that the essays were really well written. I loved that we got to see so many different voices and read a history book from not just like one person. And this is not dry like a history textbook. It covers pretty horrific and horrible things that have happened in American history, but the writers do such a great job of presenting information, and I think this could be really accessible to a lot of readers. It might be a lot at first, especially if you don't have any background in African American history, but again, it gives you a great jumping off point so that you can look at topics and be more familiar with things. So I would definitely recommend this, and I really enjoyed this. I've been reading it for several months, so it was really nice to take the first couple days of this month to finish this out. The next book I read is Adulthood Rights by Octavia Butler. This is the second book in the Exogenesis series, or the Lilith's Brood series. The first book, Dawn, follows our main character of Lilith as she wakes up to discover that she's on a spaceship and has been on a spaceship for hundreds of years as aliens kind of cultivate and fix humans over time. And these aliens want Lilith to kind of help reintroduce the saved humans to Earth and society again in a very specific way. I really love the first book because it covers a lot of different topics in a really nuanced way. There's obviously a lot of allusions to like political and social issues, but it doesn't overtake the story. So you get this really nuanced, interesting story, alien sci-fi story, while also getting a lot of political, social commentary that connects to our everyday lives, talking about like colonialism, racism, a lot of different topics. And the second book I didn't love as much. It follows one of Lilith's children as they're growing up and kind of the contradiction they face of being half alien, half human, and kind of understanding the humans who want to live and be by themselves, and then understanding the aliens as well who want to be mixed with the humans. And again, because it's so centered on its own story and its own characters, this brings a lot of complications and nuance to a lot of political and social issues that the book is obviously alluding to. I just really love how Octavia Butler weaves in political stuff. It's really interesting. But just as a sci-fi novel, I didn't love this one quite as much as the first one. The first one is really interesting because, you know, we're learning about the aliens and getting to know and understand the world. This one, I really like the interplay between the different characters. But I do think that there are a lot of points in this novel where the story kind of dragged a little bit. So I ended up giving this a 3.5 stars just because I didn't like it quite as much as the first one, but I am really excited to see where this novel continues and where it ends. I will say that this book talks a lot about sex and procreation and what it means to be human, and this novel very much implies that like procreating is like the most human thing, which I don't necessarily agree with. So I wish this novel had a little bit more nuance between sexuality, because that seems to really be missing, especially because gender is a really big thing in here. But overall, I enjoyed this and I'm excited to see where the story goes from here. It's a remarkable piece of sci-fi, and I really enjoy Octavia Butler's work. And the third and final book that I read in the month of February is Bonds of Brass by Emily Skrzynski. And this is another adult sci-fi novel, and I actually did a little review for it on TikTok, but this is an adult sci-fi novel following our main character Etienne, and some of his earliest memories are of his kingdom being conquered by this other space empire, and since that point he has become an orphan because of the war, and then he's been taken in by the military force that is run on this planet, and all he wants to do is like kind of fit in, keep his head low, and just kind of integrate into the military there. And really the only thing he cares about is his best friend, who he kind of maybe has a crush on, but during one of their pilot drills things get a lot more complicated, and Etienne's loyalties are really called into question as he has to flee this planet with his best friend. I really enjoyed this novel. It's really fun, really spunky. It has a lot of that really fun action that you would expect of like a space opera movie or like a young adult novel, but then it has a lot of really serious internal character moments where the characters are really struggling to decide what they want to do. And I really like this book because Etienne's motivations are really nuanced and complicated. In a lot of these books, the main character just kind of has a blind devotion or loyalty towards one thing or one kingdom, but Etienne really calls this into question because he feels that pull towards his home kingdom, but at the same time he feels really guilty about his situation, and he also calls his home worlds into question because they basically abandoned him and a bunch of other people who had to flee that planet. And kind of like when a kid is stuck in between two sides of a war, the most important thing isn't like loyalty to one country or one country winning, it's more towards their own safety and to like the friends and people that you've made along the way. And so he's really like struggling with his dedication towards this empire that he's been a part of, to his home planet empire, and then to his best friend. And so I just really love that complicated motivation and how it expands and changes with the story. Again, this is an adult sci-fi, but I think it has really good crossover appeal for a young adult audience. This first book at least isn't very explicit, so I think it's a great starting off point for adult sci-fi. It's a lot of fun. It's not too complicated with any of the space stuff, which I personally really enjoy, and the characters are so good and fleshed out that it really connects me to the action and the story. I just really enjoyed this, and I would highly recommend the audiobook because the narrator just has a really good voice. Like, his voice is very nice. But yes, this is a really fun first novel in a sci-fi series, and I'm really excited to see where the story goes from here because the ending is a lot, and yes, I'm very invested. But yes, those are all the books that I read in the month of February. I had some stuff that I finished that was on my to-be-read list, so that's always great. And while this reading month was not the best for me, I am really happy with the stuff that I finished, and I really enjoyed everything that I read. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.